I just feel so much energy around this emerging again right now. I went to a community meeting about Lyndale Avenue that many of you were at in my ward a couple of months ago. And it is the first time in my 6 years in office that I was in a room where the vast majority of the people were there to demand a safer street. One person talked about parking removal, but in a more moderate way than I've ever heard. And I just think that there is not only support, but a demand from our community to step up and do more. And that is because of all of the organizing work and leadership that's happening. So 10 years ago, the Minnesota, we started the Minneapolis Bicycle Coalition, which is now Our Streets. And that was when the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota reformed and re-energized. So I've been reflecting on how I can, in this position, respond to and reflect and honor that new energy that I'm seeing. And so one thing I want to say publicly that I've thought privately is that I really want to use this position to just better create space for people to come in and talk about these issues and really feel a part of these decisions that we've made. I think we've come so far in our policies. We have a complete streets policy. We have a Vision Zero commitment. I think you will be excited by the Transportation Action Plan draft that comes out. But I think maybe sometimes there's so much momentum here that we have left out a little bit of that, bringing the community in and really probably missing an opportunity to go even farther by not focusing on that as much. So that's my commitment. And I mean, there's some unease about that, right? So when I shared the public hearing for the director, I think some folks said, does the council president not support the director? Does she want people to come and speak against this position appointment? And of course not. It was just an opportunity to invite people here to help us shape the direction of our department, to hear a reflection of our leadership, our collective leadership. So I want to continue that commitment going forward. There's a couple of things I wanted to say that were specifically mentioned. I agree that this idea of focusing on the 4 to 3 lane conversions is really a missing link in how we've approached our streets. It's the next big step. I think it will show up in the draft Transportation Action Plan. We will need support. Anytime we start to take away or even do something that's perceived to take away from car traffic, there's unease and fear. I always think about 3rd Avenue, which still breaks my heart every time I bike on 3rd Avenue, which is a 3 to 4 lane conversion, right? Which wasn't even supported by the data that we saw from our consultant. But it just reflects that we have a way to go in reaching out to stakeholders and communicating why 4 lane roads are so unsafe, and how much is to be gained by that move. And of course, a lot of things to balance if it's a transit corridor, if it's a high traffic corridor, but we're behind peer cities in this by a decade or two, and I'm right there with you. The Greenway bridges you highlighted, we're talking with the county right now about how to fund this enormous task of reconstructing many of them. There's historic preservation issues. This is another place where I think we really need to re-engage with the community and understand how we can prioritize this very large capital investment that needs to be made, understand where we can find the resources. It's not possible for the city to pay for that on our own without severely impacting other priorities. It's unimaginable. So this is a piece where we really could use, and I think, again, need to invite in more community involvement and support. Sidewalk clearance is something we talk about so much. I think with so much frustration, we're making progress, but I appreciate that you keep pushing us and the department on this. It's imperative to make sure that our sidewalks are usable year round and that we are meeting all of our commitments. The enforcement piece, this is another place where, last year when we started talking about the budget and investing in MPD, I really felt like that budget conversation got ahead of a thoughtful, co-developed approach to enforcement that's happening at so many tables, including the BAC and the PAC. So I'm excited that we were able to come together unanimously, passing a staff direction, which is very detailed, very specific, really lifting up the piece that you talked about, which is about making sure that any investment, any reemphasis in enforcement is centered in race equity and make sure that we don't make things worse as we're trying to make them better. So to close, I just want to reiterate my commitment to re-engaging with folks who are at the table. I know how many hours that you spend as volunteers on the BAC and the PAC. I share your frustration with the pace of change. I look around and I see so much community support and so much political support. And while I value how much care we are taking right now to set the stage for decades of change to come, and I really believe that, I believe that these plans are being developed in a way that will make change for many, many years to come. I share your concern that we're missing an opportunity in this moment that we're in to respond to the demands for change. So I hope in the next couple of years we can really start to accelerate what we see on the streets, what we see in our budget, so that people walking and biking and taking transit or driving in our community are seeing the impact of these policy commitments we've made in their day-to-day lives. Because it doesn't matter what we say on a piece of paper. It matters what it feels like to walk to school with your child, what it feels like to bike to work, what it feels like to be in a wheelchair trying to get to that transit station to get to your job. That is where we measure our success. We measure our success in the number of families that are losing their loved ones in our streets. And so to do that, we have to do more. And I appreciate, again, how much you have continued to lead us forward, the way that you're working together, working across disciplines. And I'm so excited to continue to work together.